Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're playing the new dual casting seasonal event, which is an alternate game mode in which the first special card that we play in our turn, we play twice. That makes special spamming decks extremely powerful, including this classic, that even got buffed. So let's go give it a look. So today we'll be revisiting our Monsters Arachas Swarm Control Organic meta deck, because it is already extremely powerful in this event and actually got a small buff from the most recent patch. The general idea from this deck is very simple. We have a ton of organic cards that have a lot of damage and therefore control, which allows us to basically destroy most, if not all, of the units that our opponent plays, while also simultaneously getting us a couple of drones on our side of the board. So we can just focus almost entirely on control and still win with just a few points on our side. So, lots of organic cards, natural selection, which can also, even if you're doing overkill damage, give you lots of drones, Arachas Venom, or even Crimson Curse, slower in this case, but this is worth a ton of points because you use this twice to get a bunch of Ekimars and also drones, not to mention, of course, the damage from the Blood Moon, Lacerate as well. Then obviously we need at least some units. I mean, we can potentially just rely entirely on getting a few points from those drones if we are quite literally destroying every single unit that our opponent plays, but we can also do things like either play Death Wish units like the Archespore so that our opponent could destroy them with some of their damaging special cards, which are extremely common in this event, but in doing so, they'll give us additional value either from this Archespore coming out from our deck, spawning more units on our side of the board if we play the Nightwraith, or the Endrega Eggs, or we could even go the immunity route with things like Werewolf, and Alpha Werewolf, or somewhat similarly with Olgierd Immortal, because in the case of the immune cards, they just can't get targeted at all. In the case of Olgierd Immortal, he can't take damage, which means in an event where our opponent is, for the most part, trying to do any and everything they can to destroy our units with special cards, it is really hard for them to do that when we have cards like these that are so tough to take down. So those are our ways of dodging our opponent's damage, and then we have other ways to put up more points on our side of the board in case our opponent does still find a way to get some stuff going on their side of the board. So we can do things like Triss gives us another copy of one of our bronze special cards, and our bronze special cards are really good, so this could be more control, or it could be more setup for putting up points on our side. With Arachas Nest to spawn in a bunch of drones, in general, we are going to be going very wide with this deck rather than tall, so lots of little units, which we will then boost up. In part with Spontaneous Evolution, which we would, for the most part, like to use on a drone, and we have lots of ways to get drones, whether it be from playing those organic cards, or worst comes to worst, use at least one of your leader ability charges, and you can get drones that way. You're giving a boost to your drone, and you're also spawning in a bunch more drones, which you can then use the second copy of Spontaneous Evolution on for even more row flooding and boosts. And then the big finisher is going to be Bone Talisman. This is the card that has been buffed. It already boosted all of our allied units by 1, which, if we have a full board, is worth 18 points per Bone Talisman, which is incredible. But it is now an organic card, which was not previously the case, which means what used to be the greatest weakness of this deck, a short round 3 where we just brick our hand and we have things like Bone Talisman, but we don't have enough ways to spawn in units anymore, so the Bone Talisman becomes fairly weak. Now Bone Talisman, as an organic card, can still give us more drones on the board, so it can compensate for what would otherwise be the biggest weakness of this deck, running out of time to create more units. So that's really all there is to it. Destroy your opponent's cards with your special organic cards, then put cards on your side of the board that are either so small with the drones that your opponent doesn't really want to destroy them, or Death Wish cards that your opponent doesn't want to destroy, or immune, or cards that can't take damage, and therefore your opponent can't destroy them even if they want to, and then boost all those things up with your boosting specials. One little thing to bear in mind is we do have both Curse of Corruption, which will destroy the highest unit twice, because we play it twice, and similarly also Glorious Hunt, which destroys the unit with the highest base power twice. That distinction is sometimes very important to bear in mind, so just make sure you're paying close attention to which one you're using. But in particular, after you have used your various boosting specials, or after playing Olgierd, there is some chance that could backfire on you and destroy one of your own cards. So you need to be careful that you don't accidentally get negative value out of those, as long as you are mindful of that and play those two on the relatively early side. You should be able to dodge that, and for the most part, you're just going to have the 1, 2, 3, 4 power units on your side from the drones or drones that have gotten boosted, or some of those Death Wish cards, which means it is very unlikely that you're going to hit your own cards with those tall removals. So it's mostly Olgierd or very late on the round after you've done the various boosting things. So very powerful, those two removal cards, Curse of Corruption and Glorious Hunt, in case your opponent tries to do something really ambitious, but you just need to be mindful of when you're breaking those out. But overall, that means when we play this deck correctly, we have amazing control, amazing boosts, and it's really tough for our opponents to shut us down. So let's go see it in action. Alright, so going up against Skellige here, and they'll go first. Okay, so this very well may be a Skellige Raids deck, in which case having cards like either Olgierd, who can't take damage, or Werewolf, who can't be targeted, could be very useful. Are still some ways it could hit something like Werewolf, even with that immunity, though, so it's not perfect, per se. We have a lot of control here, with Curse of Corruption, Glorious Hunt, a couple of natural selections, and then Arachas Venom as well, even Crimson Curse. Need to be a little bit careful combining these two in particular in the same round that we have Olgierd. We have some potential to have this backfire on us to a lesser extent with the Werewolf. So, I mean, we are on red coin. So when we have this much control, that is perhaps a good thing. Otherwise, you could lead with some of your damage immune or just outright immune cards. But that is, again, a little bit risky. Because if we were to play those early, that would pretty much guarantee that we don't want to play either of these in this round. And we would like to keep our options open. Okay, Queen's Guard. Only one of those cards that is potentially an engine. So we could go in and natural selection on the Queen's Guard. It's not a super high priority. I don't know what the likelihood of them actually being able to damage her and create extra copies would be. It's probably fairly unlikely. It would, however, prevent us from using Crimson Curse in that row, which would perhaps be something we would consider doing otherwise. So I might still go that route, especially since we have another natural selection in our hand, so we don't need to be too picky with this first one. So we do that. It gets some drones on our side, which is a little bit useful. Mata. Okay. Right. In that case, might even play the Nightwraith that they just gave us. Because if we are going to use Crimson Curse in round 1, I mean, they might pass relatively early, which would potentially limit the effectiveness of this, but at the very least, we do want to make sure they have at least 2 units in a row before we start breaking this out, in all likelihood. So, let's go Nightwraith here. I'm going to go melee row, because we do have Triss, who needs to be range row if we do have any intention of playing her later. Alright, here comes their leader ability. Honestly, we are fine with having more units on our side of the board. We can set them up very easily with stuff like Bone Talisman. Okay, you are an engine, and therefore you are something that we may choose to destroy, and in fact, we can do a pretty good job of just that with double natural selection, because the first one obviously won't kill you, but the second one will kill you with a bunch of overkill damage. That means more drones for us, which is one thing we actually don't have that much of with our hand here. So I think that could be pretty useful. Obviously, it's also an organic card, which means that that's going to give us more drones to begin with. So now something like Bone Talisman suddenly looks much more of a good play. Okay, Brahan, can destroy a drone. Fair enough. And Triss, I'm curious what they'll do here. They do go for the damage. Okay, fair enough. They'll destroy everything in our range row. It's a decent bit of damage. From a pure pointage standpoint, I was actually kind of curious to see math-wise. It might have been roughly the same amount if they tried to boost all these guys, but obviously that does limit our ability to benefit from Bone Talisman. But now that they have 3 units in that melee row, this looks like a decent time for us to break out Crimson Curse. It's a little bit later than I would normally like to play it in round 1 in particular, because they could pass relatively early and limit the effectiveness of Crimson Curse. But I think we can still make some good use out of it, and we can also put it in that row as well, since we obviously get a second copy as well. And because it's an organic card, and because it gives us 2 Ekimaras per use, we are once again back up to having a lot of cards on our side of the board, so Bone Talisman is once again a decent play. Okay, Nero. Gonna purify the bleed? I mean, there's a lot more where that came from. That Blood Moon still has a lot of turns left. Herc is unfortunate. Herkia is a bit of an issue, because she has the Veil. So that has the potential to really slow down Blood Moon. Out of curiosity, if we were break out some of these guys, Mata goes down, she does have the bleed, so it's losing a little bit of value there, and then we have a relatively low chance of getting Herkia. We could actually go Arachas. Yeah, you know what? I think this is actually the play here. This is quite good value here. Do that, and then do this to destroy Herkia. Get more drones on our side. Yes, it means there's now less stuff for Blood Moon to give the bleed to, but I think that's more than worth it. Magic Compass. Okay. This is interesting then. We have already put a bunch of stuff in their graveyard, so if they are planning on doing the Infinite Compass, then that is not going to be very good. Obviously, this is way too early for them to get the legendary Skellige card they're choosing. Delirium is unfortunate. That is a really good card against us, especially when we have the immunity units on the board, but they're only getting one copy of it here because their first special card was the Magic Compass. The Seagull, though, also very good at destroying a bunch of our cards. Now they're going very wide, and suddenly if we had something like Lacerate, which is buried in our deck somewhere, and that would be useful. Technically speaking, Triss might give that to us, and it might be worth seeing what we can get here with Triss. Obviously, they have some special cards as well, but I think we have decent flexibility here. We can make almost anything that Triss gives us worthwhile. I think the downside would be if we got a Spontaneous Evolution, we might want to get one drone out here so we have an Insectoid. In case that is what pops up. Bone Talisman. We don't have that many cards on the board right now, so okay. But I think either Lacerate or Natural Selection here. Natural Selection actually is kind of amazing, given how small those seagulls are. Lacerate obviously removes all of them, but it is also a lot of overkill damage. So I think we prioritize getting the units on our side of the board again, because that was something that we missed once they removed a bunch of our stuff, so that once again, we can go Bone Talisman here and get a lot of value. Those have doomed, so that does not work. I see what you're trying to do. You wanted to do the same thing you did before and remove a bunch of the drones with the seagulls, but I deliberately made sure that you only had doomed ones left. So now we are in the lead. We are a card up, so we absolutely should pass here, because if the round ends here, we are winning with a one card advantage, or they have to go an additional card down to still win this round, and that means we'll have permanent card advantage for the rest of the game. I mean, we could just absolutely make sure they can't catch us with something like Bone Talisman, but I think we still pass here. There's still the Blood Moon, which, I mean, it's unlikely to be enough of a factor to prevent them from catching us with one more card, but I think this is still certainly good enough. And get Sword. They don't have great options for this. Triss is still, I suppose, half decent, but the other ones, not great and not good enough for them to catch us. Okay, hold on. They are in huge trouble now. Now they've committed. They have to win this round, otherwise they have so much card disadvantage there's no way they can win. But Mata's going to get destroyed at the end of this turn, which means they have just 2 points on the board. So they need a lot here, and if it's just units they have left, it's not going to be terribly efficient. They very likely will need to use all of their leader ability charges here just to get Patricide out. And that is just barely enough for them to take the round 1 win. But clearly we picked the perfect time to pass, because now we've 3 card advantage. Presumably they are about to dry pass, but we have 1 throwaway card. So we could use any of a number of throwaway cards, but 1 throwaway card and we'll still be at the maximum of 10 going into round 3. So we'd like a low value card here. Could be Nightwraith, could be Werewolf. Maybe we see what else we can get. Other than that, have we already played Archespore? We have not. And it's not terrible, but okay, fair enough. Surely they dry pass. Okay. I think we might go Bridge Troll here. I think that might be our lowest value card. Yes, if they destroy it, we get a boost on one of our other cards, but generally speaking, when it comes to playing our Death Wish units, those are going to be the first cards we play, and so if this is the only card on the board, when we use it, and it immediately gets answered, then we aren't really benefiting from that Death Wish. Yeah, we could use Leader Ability Charge to make sure at least a drone gets boosted in the process, but I think I'd just prioritize the immunity over that anyway. So that's all we need to win round 2. Okay, so that means we still have 2-card advantage here going into round 3. And the big thing we want to be careful about is we still have both Curse of Corruption and Glorious Hunt when we have Olgierd in our hand. So we need to be really mindful that we don't have this backfire on us and take out Olgierd, or even things like Bone Talisman might get us big, or Zoltan Scoundrel might get us big enough that those things could backfire on us. Would like some more specials though, but we need to be a little bit careful that we don't run out of board space. So having one Arachas Nest, nice. Having multiple could backfire. Granted, did we just get the second Archespore, or did I mulligan the other one? I think I mulligan the other one. Okay, I think this still works then. So if we're going first, normally this would be the time where you would play either an immune card or a Death Wish card. That way, either your opponent can't target the unit, or if they do, and they destroy it, then you're going to get some additional value from it. Or you could play Olgierd, and that way you just can't take damage. But as we were saying, we pretty much need Olgierd to be one of, if not our very last plays, because otherwise these guys are likely to hit him. So for that reason, I think we might go Archespore first. Okay, so Nero. Okay, Xavier does not make a difference to us. We are not going to use anything in our graveyard, so we can let him do whatever. And the Impenetrable Fog is fine. That's why we played a Death Wish unit first, because we don't care about this getting destroyed. Okay, they're going to try to set up Magic Compass, though. Remember that. They're on just 3 cards in their deck. So, although we're looking at this and we're saying we have 2-card advantage and thinking that everything is fine and this will be an easy win, that is not necessarily the case, because they have 2 Magic Compasses, and they just need to get rid of 1 more card in their deck, and then it is possible for them to play whatever legend, or almost whatever legendary Skellige card they'd like. So we need to be careful about that. And if they get Ernachad plus Sucrus, then that might be a good time to break out Olgierd, or just remove that with these guys. So I think, at least for now, let's go Nightwraith. I'm going to deliberately keep this the only unit in this row. That way it'll get destroyed by the row effects and just summon out the other Archespore. Otherwise, if we put the other things in here, we're going to lose rats or lose drones. Lady of the Lake. Okay, they put Magic Compass back in their deck, so now they do have 2 or fewer cards in their deck, so this will be a legendary card. But this is going to be very telling what direction they choose to go in here. Melusine, round 3. I mean, yes, the Rain. And if they use this to get Fulmar, that could make a lot of sense. Okay, that is exactly what they're going for. That does make sense. That does make sense, because Rain is decent, although not amazing, for getting rid of a bunch of wide cards. Storm, however, is fantastic for that purpose. What we can do here, though, is we can get rid of Melusine, and we can potentially... we would have gotten rid of Fulmar. Might still be able to get rid of Fulmar if we go Glorious Hunt. Curse Corruption is definitely not going to work because his base power may be the same as Xavier, but he's been damaged by 1 by Melusine. So I think we do this now, and we save this for... They have 1 more Magic Compass combo. As I was saying, we want to get rid of this stuff early anyway, so good thing we get the opportunity, and we do get rid of Fulmar. Okay, that's perfect. So we at least denied them that opportunity. They may be able to do the same thing again here. Okay, so we could Curse of Corruption, remove you. That's not bad, but again, we know they have 1 more really big combo they're trying to set up with the double Magic Compass, so I think we really should try to save it for that. So for that reason, I mean, they've shown they have some intention to try to punish us for going wide with things like Melusine, so although Arachas Nest is pretty important, I think we might try to hold off on that for now. The Werewolf is a little bit risky because it's smaller than you, but it is bigger than you. You are going to get boosted a little bit over time, so just want to make sure that this doesn't get hit by Curse of Corruption, but I think as long as we're at least a little bit patient, we should still be fine there. Okay, Hangeth Sword. This also gives them Triss, right? With her, they're going for more row effects. Those can hit the Werewolf, and presumably that's what they're going for here, yep. Okay, so we're deliberately playing low priority cards first. So that if they do get answered, then it's not the end of the world. And because we have double Last Say, we can finish with stuff like double Arachas Nest and then double Bone Talisman, which, unless they have a bunch of points on the board, should still be enough for us to get a lot of value and likely single-handedly be enough for us to win. Curse of Corruption is now once again safe. We could destroy Xavier and Triss. I mean, still not great value, but there is some time sensitivity to this because, again, we can't have it backfire and hit Olgierd, or there's some potential it backfires once we start boosting up all of our drones. And we're, I guess, sort of running out of cards we'd like to play outside of that, but I really want to save this for Sucrose plus Earner Chat in case that's what they're trying to do. I mean, Olgierd does play around it a little bit, but maybe it is. No, it shouldn't be. Shouldn't be Arachas Nest. We should Lacerate. Because Arachas Nest can also be easily countered with Wildboar the Sea, is what I'm worried about. Or Svalbard. Okay, now we get much more info. It is Fulmar. It is probably going to be Melusine again. So this is what we were waiting for, so I'm glad they do it now. This is what we were waiting to use Curse of Corruption on. It is Melusine, yep. So now, Melusine's a 9, you're a 5, which means you are the 2 highest cards, so Curse of Corruption still removes the 2 of you. So we've answered their big stuff. Obviously, they have more points right now than we do, but because we have more cards than they do, we're not super concerned about that, and we are still... Ooh, decoy, hold on, what's the intention there? Okay, they're just... I mean, this really looks like it's a Magic Compass deck that is designed to counter other Magic Compass decks, with all the graveyard banishment. Seems like what they're trying to do here. Oniro, but they can't do anything with that Oniro, because it was all just meant to thin out their deck to set up Magic Compass. So, now that they've done their big stuff, their row effects have ended, I think this is where we can start to break out Olgierd, yes, although we might still wait a little bit on him in case one of these might be a Heat Wave. So this is probably the right time to start going Arachas Nest. Want to be a little careful that we don't flood our range row, because we do want to put Zoltan there, but I think should still be fine. Lacerate, of course, obviously hits us hard, but we do still have leader ability as well. And get Sword. Not that good when we just have 1-powered drones. Okay, so what is this last card? I mean, we'd like to... We might go Zoltan here. We might flood this row completely. And just in case this is something that's going to try to wipe out all these drones, go for a Zoltan Scoundrel. Because if they do remove all these, then we're in a little bit of trouble, because that limits the value of Bone Talisman significantly. Do still have Olgierd Immortal for a finisher, but I think just to play it a little bit safe, I think this is probably the best option. So this boosts everything in a row. We do it twice, because it is a special card. Lacerate technically can still destroy all of those, so that is probably the biggest risk here, the biggest threat. But they clearly don't have it, because here, they forfeit. Alright, so going to begin Scoia'tael here, and we'll go first. Okay, so in general, if we're going first, we want to have either a Death Wish unit, although this is not a great one to start off with, because it can't boost itself, so that way if our opponent has damage, then we're going to still get some value out of it, so Endrega Eggs better in that way, or the Archespore, for that matter, and we only have one of you, so that works. The other one will get summoned up from our deck. Otherwise, we go with something with immunity, like the Werewolf, or the other Werewolf. So that is nice. We might have too many of those types of things, to be honest with you. So we'd like to get more units on the board early here. So I think we might even dump you. Okay, definitely don't want to see both of them, though. Because we want to make sure that if we do have this round go long, then we have enough setup for Bone Talisman to be effective. Because that is potentially one of, if not our best cards, so we want to make sure we can still get good value out of that. So why don't we... Actually kind of like Nightwraith here. Because once again, it is a card that they could hit with a damaging special, but if they do, then it's going to spawn in more stuff, and that way, not only are we putting points on the board, making it hard for them to answer us, but also giving us more units on the board to set up for the potential Bone Talisman plays. So obviously this is going to get boosted if they do a bunch of specials. We actually don't have that much in the way of damaging specials here. Surprisingly. I would like to say, technically, Curse of Corruption can still hit this Elven Scribe and destroy it in one hit even after it gets all of its extra points, so I guess we could be kind of patient there. And just play more stuff that we're okay with getting destroyed. Just don't play anything bigger than you. I mean, at this point, we actually want the Elven Scribe to get boosted so that we don't accidentally destroy ourselves. Granted, it does still give us thinning, but okay. Don't love the hand buff, though. That's a little harder to cancel out. Now, the Wandering Treants are a little bit of an issue if we were looking to use Predatory Dive. We don't have it in this round, so that's probably fine. It does potentially make a Lacerate much better, though. So it happens to work pretty well for us here. They are going for the damage, but they're trying not to kill the Death Wish stuff, so again, that's why we started with Death Wish. They did line everything up really nicely in that row, so we could go for a Lacerate right now and destroy that Elven Scribe before it gets boosted. Destroy you as well, and you, and get a little bit of extra value from these Treants. The thing is, that's probably a little preemptive. We know they're going to get more Treants, right? And as we were saying, we technically don't really care if this gets boosted, because we can still answer it with the Curse of Corruption. Maybe there's something to be said for holding on to this until later, but still, I think that's perhaps, maybe better yet, is to go with a Crimson Curse here. We can technically put it in both rows, so they can't dodge it, but they have a lot of stuff to get hit by this right now, and it also loads us up with even more units. So if we are going to do something like a Bone Talisman later on, then that is much more effective. Okay, although the Whisper is not good. That can very quickly fill up an entire row, and with all that Veil, that is just about the best way to counter the Blood Moon that we just put on. Okay, they obviously had good stuff for them to destroy as well. Now this is looking a little more like a Lacerate situation, or even better still would be if we had one of our Arachas Venoms to perfectly take you two out. That would be ideal. And there's a chance we get it with Triss. It's pretty unlikely because we have a bunch of different special cards, and they probably do too. But we could try. Yes, you got bigger. We expected that to happen. Thing is, Lacerate, we'd have to go both in this row. I guess that's still fine. Yeah, let's do it to answer the Whispers, because otherwise those are going to get pretty annoying. A little bit overkill, but I think still decent value there. Okay, Nature's Rebuke does boost up some of their Treants, which right now this would get Scribe and Brigade at 4, right? Which is, I mean, that's obviously good value. That's okay, not great value. So we could potentially wait. We don't need to pass them on this turn. Next turn is where we really need to catch them. So we could play it simply, or don't want to play the Werewolf, otherwise that becomes the potential target for Curse of Corruption. Technically, even Triss could be as well. Don't want to flip the Magic Lamp yet either for that same reason. This does put us in a bit of a tricky spot here. Might kind of need to go Triss. Let's see, I do kind of like the Lacerate, or Bone Talisman is really nice. It is going to make it a little bit harder to go Curse of Corruption, but we have enough stuff on the board. Yes, had we known we were going to get that, then flipping the Magic Lamp would have been nice as well, but I think we can certainly settle for some very solid value there. Okay, Nature's Rebuke again. Honestly, if you get rid of our biggest cards, please hit... I mean, you're not going to hit Triss because you want to get the Death Blow. I wish you did, though. Because we would love if you had not only the highest unit, but also the second highest unit. Again, that was the risk of using Triss on that previous turn. We still have the value coming from Blood Moon with this bleed kicking in. They've now used all their leader ability charges. So we could flip the Magic Lamp. We do need to catch them this turn. So flip the Magic Lamp and maybe just drop an Endrega Eggs. And that's kind of us biding our time a little bit here and seeing if they play something else this big, and then we can break out Curse of Corruption later or finish with Bone Talisman directly from our hand. So we don't need anything dramatic at this point in time. They'll just pass. Exactly, no need to commit anything big. And that means we'll win round 1. Okay, now we did play our previous Arachespore in round 1, didn't we? We did not get it killed. Alright, so that means we definitely don't want you anymore. Bridge Troll is another Death Wish card that is basically bait for them to try to remove. They've played both of their Nature Rebukes, right? So they might not have as much in the way of control. So I don't know that that's as big of a point of emphasis we want to have here. Can still lead with the Alpha Werewolf, which has just outright immunity. Okay, now this is interesting, though. Because in a long run, we need to be a little bit careful about running out of board space, especially now that we have Arachas Nest, which gives us 10 units, once you consider we're playing this twice and getting an extra little drone spawn on the board every time we do it as well. We also have our leader ability, which is even more drones. So my point is, although we are a card down here, we may try to push at least a little bit and try to bleed a little bit in round 2. We risk that we're going to be cards down still in round 3, but given what we're looking at here in terms of how much board space we're going to need, I feel like that may still be worth doing. So I'm going to go leader ability and then spontaneous evolution on that drone, which is another way to get a whole bunch of drones. Because I'm a little concerned about that combination plus Arachas Nest now basically means that our entire board is full. Ooh. Well, I mean, it does destroy Sorceress first. Then it's going to destroy one of our drones. It's base power, not current power, so who knows if it'll be a 1 power drone? Not so bad. If it's a 5 power drone, it's a little unfortunate. Don't really know what they're going to try to go for with this. I mean, obviously, it's 2 extra specials, which is really nice. But I mean, they also haven't caught us, so we could just pass here and make round 3 functionally a little bit shorter. I guess we'll go for it. Now, this one is going to give us negative value. Just -1, but it denies the double specials from that Sorceress, which I think is still a good thing. And now, okay, admittedly, it gets a little bit trickier here. Because Curse of Corruption does not work. In this case, it would just destroy both drones, because this is current power, not base power. And these are higher than the Sorceress is at the moment. Once again, they have not caught us, which means we could just pass here, and they'd have to play another card, and we'd be on even cards in round 3, so that's not bad. We could break out a Bone Talisman or Arachas Nest and then Bone Talisman to go absolutely crazy in this round and just try to out-tempo them. Maybe there's something to be said for that. I mean, that would have been our big round 3 combo, but assuming we still have most of our leader ability charges for round 3, maybe that's still not the end of the world, because our board is completely full here, which means that we won't even get the extra stuff on the board from Bone Talisman unless they do something to... Well, okay, well, fair enough. That is the perfect counter. Oh, okay, well, it was the perfect counter, but they misplayed, because we would have liked to have gone Bone Talisman on this turn and just go for really high tempo, then probably pass and see how long it would take them to catch us. Obviously, using the Lacerate made it so that we have a much less effective combo for that we really don't want to use here. However, they did not use Sorceress, which means they still have not caught us here. So we could and probably should pass on this occasion. Technically, Curse of Corruption destroys Sorceress and one of our drones, which means we're winning 3-0. It denies them the Sorceress, but that's probably still easy enough for them to catch a 3-point deficit. So I think we pass here. It means we'll be on even cards in round 3. But it also means that we dodged their Lacerate, which would have been a really big deal in round 3. And we still have both of our Bone Talismans. Shaping Nature, getting that carried over into round 3, though, with the Echoed Copy, though, that is big. Okay, so definitely don't want Archespore, as we were saying before. At this stage, we have the Talismans. This is what previously was the weakness of this deck. Before Bone Talisman was an organic card, you ran the risk of, by round 3, maybe not having enough units on the board to make Bone Talisman effective, but now this at least gives us more drones. We still have 4 out of 5 of our leader ability charges, so that's not bad either. Natural Selection may give us more units on our side. We'd like it to, for sure. I mean, at least from the organic tag. Similarly from the Venom, and then Werewolf and other Werewolf. If we were going first would be decent plays here, but yes, Spontaneous Evolution is perfect because that means much more reliable ways to get drones on the board here. Okay, this is interesting. 12 power and a relatively powerful ability as well. We very much could Curse of Corruption here. The downside is that although we're getting a lot of value from our initial copy of this, the bonus copy from dual casting is doing nothing, of course. There's only one card on their side of the board. So do we settle for solid value here, destroying just the Seer and break the second copy? Or do we say, we don't think you're going to use this just yet. You're going to wait until you have more cards on the board, and then you're going to do it. And that way we can get the full value out of it. It's tough to say. I'm going to take the risk, though. That very well could backfire. It's all a matter of, do they activate this ability on this turn? They do not. Okay, perfect. Perfect. So now we're going to remove one of these Seers and one of the Sorceresses as well. Or, alternatively, Manticore Venom does destroy both the Sorcerers altogether. Damages, but not destroys the Seer. So, basically we can destroy Seer and one Sorceress, or we can destroy both Sorceresses and weaken Seer. Which one is better? That's actually kind of tough to say. Maybe just getting rid of one Sorceress is sufficient? Well, except for that part where I forgot that we had on our side of the board. Okay, objectively, in that case, Manticore Venom was obviously preferable. Okay, but here's where we absolutely punish them. We made a big mistake, don't get me wrong. But now they should have used the Sorceresses, and we can just remove absolutely everything on their side of the board. So, fortunately, we still had one of our key cards in hand. And I think they were very much trying to build around those other guys. Ooh. Johnny, well, hate to break it to you, you're going to go down too. So they had a bunch of these cards that the more specials they play, the stronger they would become. But by getting rid of all those engines, now they probably have some specials in hand, but don't really have anything to use them on. They might even have to brick this turn if they were boosting specials. Shaping Nature doesn't even have a target initially. Second one will go on Wandering Tree, and technically we did know that they had a Shaping Nature. We did see it in the previous round, so that could have been a target for our tall removal, but I think now, as we were saying, we're just getting greedy. And we know they've used at least one Lacerate, right? Possibly two. It's another Shaping Nature. So this is where, again, we technically knew that they had some big stuff like this. But we have some pretty huge finishers as well here. We're just going to load up on as many drones as we can. And although this is not quite going to fill our board, Bone Talisman is now an organic card, so this will give us one more drone. Then our board will be completely full. And we will boost absolutely everything. And they will forfeit. So there's a look at a Monsters Organic Control deck for the new Dual Casting Seasonal event. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and leave a comment down below. Let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions we should experiment with next. And take a look at our Dual Casting playlist to see previous decks that we've used as well. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.